To the Action News 5 digital desk. I love checking in with our friends at NASA because they have so many fascinating and interesting things that are happening there. One of which is happening this week, where they have a couple of different pieces of equipment launching into the sky, including a new telescope that's launching into the sky to map the sky and the origins of the universe, and then another piece to study the sun. Right now, I am joined on the Action News 5 digital desk by someone who knows. He's in fact a group leader with NASA, Raphael Ati. Is that how you say your name? Good morning.
Sure. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, Raphael, good morning to you. Tell us about this launch that's happening and what to expect and what's expected to come out of it. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. So yes, NASA and SpaceX are launching two missions in one single rocket. Those are carpooling satellites, And so they're launching the SPHEREx mission and the PUNCH mission. And SPHEREx will study the origin of the universe, while PUNCH, of which I'm the one of the group leads, will study the sun, and in particular the solar wind that shoots off of the sun toward Earth and the other planets.
That's really interesting. So, a lot of people think, oh, why do we need to study these things? We already know what the sun is, and we're in the Milky Way galaxy. I mean, what benefit is for all of us, including yourselves, to study these kind of things?
Of course. So on the one hand, we have SPHEREx, who's going to study the origin of the universe by looking at billions of stars and hundreds of millions of galaxies. On the other hand, we have Punch, who's going to look at our nearest star, which is the sun. And, people may have seen last year during the total solar eclipse, this sort of white veil around the sun. This is what we call the corona. And that corona is in interaction with an even larger environment that we call the heliosphere, that is this giant bubble also that encompasses the other, the Earth, Mars, and the other planets. And Punch will have an unprecedented view of both that corona, so the outer faint part of the solar atmosphere, and of that heliosphere and how they interact together.
So I understand why Punch would like to study the sun. I mean, it has really a direct impact on us, various solar flares, solar winds, that sort of thing. But I'd love for you to explain why it's so important to study our galaxy, the origins of the universe, and map it out with something called SPHEREx.
Sure. So I'm not an expert of the SPHEREx mission, but I can really summarize. So there is this fundamental question that we've always had since the beginning of time, is that where do we come from? How did we come into existence? And so SPHEREx is addressing those very cosmological questions about the origin of the universe, to really explain how all the stars, all the worlds, all the earth, how the Earth came to exist in the first place. And in particular, SPHEREx will study a very particular aspect of the birth of the universe, which we call the inflation, which is the very, very, very beginning of things.
That's fantastic. Thank you for explaining that for me, Raphael. Tell me more about where these spacecrafts are going to be going exactly in order to fulfill their objectives.
Sure. So after the launch, both SPHEREx and PUNCH will be placed in a polar orbit so that they can have an unprecedented view of the universe for SPHEREx, and on the all around the sun for PUNCH. And PUNCH, in fact, is made of 4 suitcase-sized satellites that's going to progressively over the first 3 months start to separate into a constellation of these 4 satellites, like a carousel, a sort of a carousel of spacecraft. And they will look at them all around the sun and combine their imagery into a seamless wide field image of that solar corona and of the solar wind that is being transporting very charged particles, that this is really what we call the solar wind, toward Earth and the other planets.
I know you mentioned solar wind a few times. It's certainly important to study that. What about solar flares? That seems to get people all riled up and concerned.
Absolutely. So solar flares and are a type of solar eruptions that are extremely powerful. And together with what we call coronal mass ejections, this is when we have literally stuff coming off of the sun and erupting out of the solar atmosphere toward the other planets. So these are what creates the space weather effects, which are effects that can be detrimental to satellites because they can knock out satellites. They can expose astronauts to very dangerous radiations, and they can also disrupt power grids, GPS communication, and they can also damage oil pipelines on the ground.
So we have thousands of people who watch us each and every morning here on the Digital Desk. Raphael, from West Tennessee, Eastern Arkansas, North Mississippi. How would you explain in a sentence or two the importance of this mission, these two missions, for NASA and for us here at home?
Sure. So by studying the sun with Punch and the universe with SPHEREx, then everything that is a single connected system that is really the universe in which we travel on that starship that we call Earth, then we will be able to connect all those dots. How do we fit in that universe? How do we get prepared for tomorrow's challenges of a sun that erupts with these eruptions and it can damage our technology that the society depends on. You know, when you take your smartphone, you don't realize, but each time you do things in your smartphone and interact with your apps, you're interacting with a lot of satellites. When you take your GPS to navigate with your car, you are actually querying information from so many satellites. And so if you have suddenly lots of solar flares and coronal mass ejections that can disrupt this communication, that has a very direct impact on your daily life because you depend on space to live the life that you live now.
Raphael Ati, we really appreciate your time here on the Digital Desk. Thank you for breaking it down for us. Congratulations on these two major launches, and we appreciate getting the information from both of those spacecrafts in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.